long enough. It's Friday night. I am what? Oh, got nervous. Thought I was doing all that stuff for nothing. Alright. Let us hop into a draft. Pomeranian, $3, $50K to first. Top 4 move on in the first round. 940 seat final isn't the best. But we like drafting, so I don't really care. Give me a good position. Maybe listening to anything. I don't know what I'm bopping my head to. Alright, filled up. Pick number 1. Jeez. Alright, well, Jahmyr Gibbs is the obvious choice, I think. You could also go Jamar Chase. I've seen a lot of people that have been leaning toward Jamar Chase, but I think if you're in the 1 position, as much as I think that Jamar Chase has so many great matchups. I mean, the Bengals are favored most of the year. I think it was 15 out of 17 games. I don't think you can skip out on a top-tier running back, truly. And grabbing Jahmyr Gibbs here means that I don't have to go running back on the turn. I can skip, go probably triple receiver. But this is the easiest choice. Is my sound not working? Is my sound... It is. I wonder why my sound on the actual website's not working. Do I have to... I don't know. We'll try and fix that after. But... here, Bijan, Jamar Chase, Puka, Jonathan Taylor goes 5th. I found that interesting. JSN at 6. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Christian McCaffrey is still on the board. So looking at the range already, I have so much George Pickens. I think being able to grab George Pickens would be pretty nice. AJ Brown is somebody that I'm also looking at, but can't ignore guys like Josh Allen. Maybe we try something different. Maybe we go like Josh Allen. Get number 1 receiver, number 1 running back, number 1 quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, Ashton Gianti at the turn. Chase Brown goes already. Interesting. Probably was going to be somebody that you could have found. Well, I guess he went to better choice at. Kenneth Walker goes at 14. Double running back stacks on the back end. Derrick Henry goes. Maureen Hampton's somebody that I think definitely somebody that I want to have in the there we go, fixed it. Maureen Hampton is somebody that I want to get more hands on, more shares of, but I've had so many drafts where I've either picked at the very, very beginning, like pick 1, pick 2, or just at the very, very end, 11 and 12, where I just have other players that I'd rather have in that range. Like, I've even gone, like, Brock Bowers at the turn. Definitely want to pick up more shares of Amari and Hampton, though. As we see Hampton going after Jefferson, who goes at 17. A couple of picks left. We're going to have a back-to-back. Trey McBride is definitely an interesting one. I have pretty much no shares whatsoever in Malik Neighbors this year. I just don't think that he's healing to the level that I'd like. And I'm not really sure when he's going to come back. So I have no real interest in picking him up. Nico Collins is an option. I don't have a ton of Nico Collins. Goes there because of course he does. So looking here, AJ Brown goes, wow. So that kind of puts me in a tough position because I'm not a really big fan of Malik Neighbors. I could just go Jeremiah Love, go back-to-back running backs, and then pick up my first wide receiver here. And I think that's what I want to do. I think I want to go Chris Olave. I haven't had too much Chris Olave. So we get the quick start at running back, grab 2 of them. So now we should be good. We should be able to just build our wide receiver base. Jamison Williams is always solid. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Adams, also people that I'd love to have. I have a million shares of Devontae Adams and Jamison Williams, but I just think that they're the position that you can get them in, going as wide receiver 23, Devontae going as wide receiver 27, or 26, sorry. Definitely think that these are solid options. You look at their schedules, Jamison Williams plays the Bears, the Vikings, the Packers twice a year. You know, Packers defense, Micah Parsons still recovering. You're not going to get as much as quick to the quarterback. So Jared Goff is probably going to have a good time playing against them this year. I don't even know what I'm talking about. 13 picks away. Josh Jacobs continues to fall. Now, I haven't really had many shares of Josh Jacobs this year, honestly. I doubt he falls down to, like, say, pick 48, pick 49. But if he does, you get him at a 20-pick discount. I almost think that you kind of have to. Garrett Wilson, also somebody that I don't like drafting. I don't trust the New York Jets, let alone anything having to do with an offense. Regardless of who's there at quarterback, I just don't really care for it. Luther Burden, probably my favorite person that I expect to just kind of break out. with the departure of DJ Moore going to Buffalo, I think that this could be an absolutely huge year for him. Everybody continuing to skip over Josh Jacobs. He might actually find his way back to us. I'd be genuinely shocked, but crazier things have happened. Colston Loveland, also somebody that I haven't really gotten a ton of shares of. I do think that because of DJ Moore's departure, I think he's also primed to have a bigger role. They're, Josh Jacobs, you get him at a pretty big discount. Amon-Ra, Amari, Devontae Smith, Josh Jacobs. If Jacobs plays, that's kind of a nasty team, won't even lie. Looking so far, Gianti, Brown. I think Gianti's primed for a big year. T. Higgins has a great Week 17 matchup versus Baltimore. Garrett Wilson, not my favorite choice here, but a solid team all around. As we are up, Jameson Williams falls to us. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to double up on the wide receiver. We are going to grab our two guys, Devontae Adams and Javonte Williams, building our starting 2-3 stack here. Get two very solid running backs, followed up by three very solid wide receivers. And now I'm in prime position to go ahead and grab maybe a top-tier quarterback on this upcoming. Haven't gotten a lot of shares of Jalen Hurts. That'd be pretty nice. Caleb Williams obviously would be pretty nice. Would have been very nice if I was able to get Luther Burden, but whatever. Mekhi Lemon, Alec Pierce. Parker Washington I don't think is primed for as good of a season as he had last year. I still think that BTJ is probably the most talented player. Taking a look back, DJ Moore, Josh Allen, guy gets the DJ Moore stack, matches him up with Pickens and Waddle. I actually kind of like that team. He's got kind of the hero RB thing going on with Jonathan Taylor. CeeDee Lamb, Derrick Henry. I like the Baltimore stack, especially against the Cincinnati defense in Week 17. Derrick Henry, I still think is phenomenal. I don't see him slowing down. Maybe, next year, but I don't see it happening this year. Mike Evans could be huge this year for the San Francisco 49ers, if I do say so myself. Primed for a big year. Hopefully Brock Purdy can take another step forward, and Mike Evans can be a huge part of that. Jalen Hurts goes, Jaden Daniels and Burrow goes. Caleb also goes. So not looking too primed for a top quarterback. Maybe I can swing Drake May, and Drake May goes. So perhaps this is a situation. Maybe I can be the lucky one. Maybe I can grab Tyler Warren, and another receiver, maybe like a DK Metcalf, or an Alec Pierce. I did see, and of course, Tyler Warren must be watching the stream. I still think that I probably grab somebody here like Dak. Just established a top-tier quarterback. I think that the Dallas offense is going to be absolutely incredible. It was last year. And I'm going to follow it up by going with DK Metcalf. This is somebody that I think is going to be huge, especially in the later weeks, where he's going to be probably the favorite target of Aaron Rodgers. Plus, that opens me to being able to grab Aaron way, way down at a much bigger discount. and create the stack. Thought about going Mekhi Lemon. Definitely somebody that I was looking out for, as well as Jalen Warren, who's probably one of my favorite running backs, if not the favorite running back. Usually, Swift is my favorite running back to draft, especially in like no running back builds that I try and do. But Jalen Warren, with how good he was last year, playing the 1A and in the backfield. Wow, I'm toasted right now. Playing 1A in the backfield with Kenneth Gainwell, I think that Jalen Warren can afford to have a Rico Dowdle in his backfield. I think he's still going to be successful. As you see here, Caleb Williams ends up going to Mike E. He ends up getting Caleb Williams, getting Luther Burden. JSN's not too bad. Barkley, I'm not really sure what to make of that Philadelphia offense. I don't know which offense I'm really going to get. Am I going to get the Jalen Hurts offense of 2024 where they were just lights out, absolutely incredible? Or are you going to get the one from last year where nothing seemed to be going right and, everybody kind of floundered? I was big on Barkley, expecting him to kind of just maybe not replicate his success the previous year, but, really stay up there as one of the top tier fantasy running backs, and he just wasn't. He was super disappointing, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth with the Eagles. As you see here, Rico Dowdle goes to the guy with Mike Evans. This is kind of a nasty team. Mike Evans, if he can stay healthy, CeeDee Lamb, obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., if he can take that extra step forward rather than the 3 steps back that he took last year. Lamar Jackson there as well. Patrick Mahomes goes with the guy with Jay Daniels, kind of playing the hero RB a little bit. Christian McCaffrey did, Bashal Tootin, somebody that I'm not super excited about, to be honest. I don't know really what to expect from this Jaguars offense as far as the backfield is concerned. Will it be Tootin? Will it be Chris Rodriguez? There's a lot of speculation there. So, don't know how I feel about that. Igbuka should have a big year. Rashee Rice still dealing with the legal troubles. Grabs Jane Daniels, one of the elite, runners at the quarterback position, as it's our turn. And I think, I really like the options here. I think I want to take a top tier quarterback. So I'm going to swap it for Jackson Dart. I thought about going the double, the stack, getting Matthew Stafford. Decided to change it last minute. As far as tight end is concerned, definitely could go Harold Fannin, could go Sam Laporta, but it's Kyle Pitts' year. It is, wow. I'm losing. I didn't even notice that it fell. All right, it is Kyle Pitts' year. I think that he is set to have a big year. This year is only going to be better. I do think that Tua is going to be the quarterback. I do think that Tua is a better quarterback. Shocking, I know. But I do think that he's just overall the better player. I think that, especially with the fact that Michael Penix is going to be out, recovering still from his injury, I expect Tua to step in. I think that he's going to play the quarterback position a lot better, get his receivers the ball a lot better. So Drake London and Kyle Pitts, in my mind, should benefit from that, as we have a pretty dry quarterback run. Michael Pittman, somebody that I'm really high on this year. I think he has a lot of upside. Definitely somebody that can really go for like 20 points every other week if they allow Aaron Rodgers to throw that old man arm a little bit more this year. Kind of was disappointed last year. You have a guy like DK Metcalf who didn't have a horrible year necessarily fantasy-wise, but it's just not the expectations that we had when we were expecting to, see DK Metcalf with Aaron Rodgers. I expected a lot more deep bombs. So I'm expecting that a little bit more in this offense here. Looking back, our pick is coming up. Definitely looking at Jonathan Brooks. From what I've seen, you can see here he's fully cleared for the offseason program. He looks really good apparently, especially for somebody that's been dealing with an injury for now over a year, just about 2 years. Definitely looks good. I don't have a ton of shares of Jonathan Brooks. It's definitely something that I want to get more involved in. So if I have the opportunity here to grab Jonathan Brooks, I think I would like to do that. Other than that, Tyron Tracy is also an option. I really don't know how to feel about Scatabo. Brooks goes. Somebody must be watching. But, Tyron Tracy, somebody that I think he proved last year when he did step up into that role for Scatabo. He's still a great running back. He's still very fantasy viable. And he's just one injury away from, absolutely feasting. Look at this. Over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 4 total touchdowns, but he had 36 receptions. For somebody that, was in a pretty bad offense, this is somebody that I'm a huge fan of. And along with that, I don't have a ton of shares of Casey Concepcion. I do think that this is going to be a guy that's going to have like 120 to 130 targets in this offense. Regardless of whether or not he has a case of the dropsies, I love getting him at this position. I think that he definitely has a ton of potential, ton of opportunities that he'll find himself in Cleveland to be successful. So I'm okay with taking him here. Let's take a look at some of the other teams around. I'm going to go line by line. Bijan, AJ Brown, Neighbors. I'm still not a fan of Neighbors at this, especially with guys like Devontae Smith. I'd kind of even rather have Zay Flowers over Neighbors, honestly. Demont, actually a great late round running back. I think that he and the Texans are going to have a lot of opportunities to run the ball. That defense is absolutely crazy. They should find themselves on offense quite a bit. Bucky Irving, probably going to lose his job, I'll be honest. It looks like Sean Tucker's rising up the ranks. He's going to be probably taking over that backfield sooner rather than later. Tyler Warren, grabbed him just before he got to me. Kind of was hoping that he would, and I probably would have pivoted to a different quarterback besides Dak. Maybe I would have waited a little bit longer, but when he went, didn't really like anybody else that was there. Tucker Kraft, somebody that started out really hot last year, and just he ended up getting hurt. It was super unfortunate. I had a ton of Tucker Kraft, and teams just fell down the toilet after that. It was really, really sad. Jacoby Myers, super underrated. I think he has a good chance of being a number one receiver this year. I do think that he has the most reliable hands in the Jaguars offense, and I do think because of that, Trevor Lawrence is going to trust him. So he should find himself having a ton of opportunities. Xavier Worthy, obviously a boom or bust, somebody that can get you 20 or somebody that can get you 0, but when you have AJ Brown, you're hoping that Neighbors is healthy and he's going to do his thing, and you got Jacoby Myers, you're kind of looking for that boom or bust. Really like Diggs at this position. Definitely was contemplating him. Just don't really know where he's going to go. Travis Hunter just goes. I'm not big on the Travis Hunter. I'm not huge into the Travis Hunter thing. I'm not really, I don't want to say I don't believe in him, but because of the fact that he's playing both sides of the ball, I do think he's more susceptible to injuries. I do think that, he is going to possibly find himself getting injured again. And I just don't really want any part of that. Especially, with so many other mouths to feed in this offense. Brenton Strange, Jacoby Myers, you have Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington. Like, how many mouths can really be fed in this offense? I think he's the odd man out that they use him on special plays, and he's not going to line up as one of the top options. Finding ourselves here. Pacheco's definitely interesting. I think I want to go Pacheco because Jahmyr Gibbs, we grabbed him at the 101, so I think we're going to grab Pacheco, bolster our running backs a little bit, and I think what I also want to do is I want to grab my third quarterback in Cam Ward. I think that this is a guy that's going to take a huge step forward, and we have the possibility on the way back of getting somebody like Calvin Ridley, who definitely is somebody that could have some very big boom moments, as well as grabbing potentially like a Gunnar Helm, somebody to have another tight end. You get a little bit of a stack going for Cam Ward in Tennessee. This is not, an offense that you're expecting to see 40 points a game, 30 points a game from every week, but this is definitely an offense that I think is going to take a huge step forward. They invested very heavily into their offense, providing more talent around Cam Ward, and I do think that this is going to be a good year for him. I'm very excited to see how he develops as a quarterback. That being said, we do have some other options as well. Dalton Schultz is like all reliable. I love getting Dalton Schultz every chance that I get. Somebody that's getting a ton of volume in this offense. I think he is like a security blanket. I know Nico Collins is like the number one, but Dalton Schultz is a big security blanket for CJ Stroud. Speaking of CJ Stroud, we can move on to the next team. Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Breece Hall, Colston Loveland, DeAndre Swift. I actually really love this start. Breece Hall would be the one that'd be iffy about. I'd rather have Etienne over Breece Hall, but he does have Colston Loveland. I think DeAndre Swift, again, super steal at 51. This offense under Ben Johnson is just still going to be great on the ground. Parker Washington, again, I'm bigger fans of Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas Jr. than I am of Parker Washington, but I don't think it's horrible. Chuba Hubbard, fine grabbing him here. I think maybe you could have gone quarterback. You see Justin Herbert is here at this position instead of going Hubbard, but I don't necessarily hate it. Chris Godwin, I think, could have a very big year again now that Mike Evans is gone, and his only real competition right now is Emeka Egbuka. I think he could demand 100 targets this year easily. Bo Nix, obviously great. Tyler Shuck going to take a step forward. George Kittle, after having Loveland, I think is really fine because, again, you have a top-tier tight end. Kittle is going to be coming back from injury, but he's definitely a boom guy, and I speak from experience. CJ Stroud, love it to match with Nico Collins. I think it's a pretty solid team all around. This one is very interesting. Double tight end, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride with Puka. Cam Scannabo, Travion Henderson, Drake May, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Pittman, Wan'Dale Robinson. This is a very interesting team. I don't know how I feel about this team. You have Puka, who's obviously great. Bowers and Trey McBride are top two tight ends as far as fantasy purposes in football right now. Go back. Dalton Schultz is still here. We could go Gunnar Helm, but I think I want to secure the points. I think that Dalton Schultz has been very, very solid. And that being said, I think we gotta take a swing at wide receiver. Ted Hurst is also on Tampa Bay. I think we want to go Calvin Ridley. I feel very comfortable knowing, the type of player that Calvin Ridley is. You grab him, get a piece to go with your Cam Ward at quarterback. Taking a look. Drake May. Yeah, you kind of miss out on the other receivers. You're kind of playing like hero receiver almost. I know I'm a fan of Alec Pierce. I'm not really sure how I feel about him without Daniel Jones throwing the ball, but it looks like Daniel Jones was throwing the ball today at practice. So, things are looking good. Josh Downs, I think, is going to benefit from that greatly as well. This could be a newfound Indy offense, something that we saw similar to the first 7 weeks last year. Michael Pittman, definitely a boom guy. Wan'Dale Robinson, one of my favorite players of the last couple of years. I think he's going to step in and help Cam Ward develop greatly. Definitely going to be one of those guys that Cam Ward can put his trust in. Always finds a way to get open. Rachaad White, definitely solid in a backfield that has no real starter, no real guarantee. Woody Marks obviously getting taken over by Demont. Jalen Naylor, I'm not really sure what to think of the Raiders offense. I don't know who's really going to be the number one and demand the most targets. They're obviously Brock Bowers, but from the wide receiver. Will it be Trey Tucker? Will it be Jalen Naylor? Will it be Jack Besh? Who's even going to be quarterback at the start of the year? Are we going to go with Kirk Cousins? Or are we going to let Fernando Mendoza take the reins early? Probably the former. But I do think that Naylor, with how much they paid him, with the opportunity there, I do think that he is definitely a sleeper for this year. Probably one of my favorite players to draft in the later rounds because I do think that there's a good chance he demands like 80 to 90 targets. And, having that as your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, I think is absolutely great. That's great value for what you're getting. Stribling and Mendoza. Ted Hurst, I think, could have a big year. I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy, pop off, go for something like 10 touchdowns, 750 yards, something like that. He's essentially taking over that Mike Evans role, big body, put him in the end zone, give him the opportunity. Let's see if he goes up for it. I'm a big fan of going after guys like Ted Hurst in this range, especially around, you got guys like Kamara who don't even know if they're going to play, among other guys. Brandon Ayuk is still sitting here. I think this is pretty good value for Brandon Ayuk, I won't lie. I think this is pretty good value for Brandon Ayuk. He's going to get cut. He's going to go to Washington. There's a good chance that he walks in as bona fide number 2 just off of default. So I feel very comfortable going with him here. As for my other pick, I think I want one more running back. And when I look at all of the running backs that are here, I think I like Mike Washington's profile a little bit better. Ray Davis didn't really have a ton of opportunity. Ty Johnson kind of took a lot of that role last year, played a little bit better than he did. Braylon Allen was outshined last year by Isaiah Davis. Emmanuel Wilson has a mountain to climb to get into, any reasonable role. So I think this is pretty solid. I think that Mike Washington plugs in pretty well as a backup for Ashton Gianti. And I don't really have that much Mike Washington, so I'm pretty happy to grab him. Chris Brooks. That's a name that I forgot about. Chris Brooks. Didn't even think about him. Forgot that Josh Jacobs news is still so fresh. This is my second draft since the news dropped. Still so fresh in my mind. As we go, Eli Stowers up next. Tua finally goes Wow, stacking 4 tight ends is crazy work. James Cook, this might be a pretty insane team. I still think that this one is probably really insane. If Josh Jacobs plays, this one is pretty insane. But Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Rashee Rice, Buka, Patrick Mahomes, Harold Fannin, Travis Kelce. Yeah, that's one of my favorite players to draft this year. I think he is still probably minimum Travis Kelce, and this might be a bold take. I think minimum he's tight end 5. I think at minimum. I know he's going as tight end, 10, tight end 11 in best ball, but no, he's minimum tight end 5. I don't care how old he is. Mahomes is going to find a way to get him the ball. If he's playing, he will have the ball. He will put up, might not be, tight end numbers of 5 years ago when he was going absolutely crazy, 4 years ago, but he's still going to produce solid numbers. Happy to take Travis Kelce everywhere that I can. Washington from Miami might plug in as the number 1 receiver. Jerry Jeudy. Still disgusted to see Jerry Jeudy fall this far down. The Browns still kind of view him as a number 1 receiver. I don't know if I agree, but in the Browns' eyes, they didn't want to touch him, didn't want to move him, wanted to utilize him. So, getting him at 181 around number 16 is absolutely insane. Colby Parkinson finally goes. Now is when we should start thinking about our last pick of the draft. Jacoby Myers is still sitting here. Braylon Allen is actually still sitting here. But we need a touchdown guy. We need somebody that can go for, go for broke, possibly get us some big weeks. Looking at guys like Skylar Bell, looking at guys like Pat Bryant. Yesterday when I did my draft, I ended by grabbing Troy Franklin. So I think what I want to do is I want to go to the other side. I want to draft Pat Bryant. And we can take a look at my team. Gibbs, followed by Jeremiah Love, somebody that I don't really take that often. Chris Olave is also somebody that I haven't found myself in a position to draft very often. Again, been at the very front or the very back most of the time. And I've done somewhere around 50 drafts. It's actually been insane. Jamison Williams and Devontae Adams, huge fans of them in this position. We didn't grab either of the stack for, Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford. Thought about it. Didn't really want to stack it up on this one. I have so many of the stacks of Jared Goff and Jamison Williams, Matthew Stafford, and Devontae Adams. I think Dak is going to be absolutely elite. I think that Dallas offense is going to be elite. DK Metcalf for some big swing weeks. I think Jackson Dart's ability to create on the ground with his legs, he's going to be an absolute phenom as long as he can stay healthy. Kyle Pitts, huge year I'm expecting from him. I know everybody says that again, but I'm still on the Kyle Pitts train. Tyron Tracy, one injury away from, becoming that lead back. I think Casey Concepcion has an underrated year. Grab Pacheco at the in the 12th round, as a handcuff for my Gibbs. Cam Ward, think he's going to take a huge step forward. Dalton Schultz is a security blanket at the tight end position. Somebody who's just going to get you, 8 points a week, 9 points a week at the very least in case something happens. Good old reliable. Calvin Ridley for some boom or bust weeks with Cam Ward. Potentially could have some huge weeks. I don't see anybody apart from Carnell Tate. I know Wan'Dale Robinson also being in there, but on the outside, Calvin Ridley should match up on that other side. Brandon Ayuk, we're going to drop him. He's going to end up going to Washington. I still think he's super talented, and maybe matching up once again with Jaden Daniels is exactly what he needs to get back on track in his career. Mike Washington, love having him. And Janty goes down. There's a good chance he does pretty well. And Pat Bryant. So, not too shabby. So we'll go ahead and we're going to jump into another one. I wanted to do at least 2 tonight. I'm not very used to streaming and trying to talk without, thinking about what I'm supposed to say first. So it's been a great learning experience for me. I've enjoyed it. So we're going to go ahead and queue up another one. I'm going to start it. I don't even know if anybody's in here, but I'll start it in 3, 2, 1. 5 people in. Have, only waiting on a few more. Would love to, see myself in one of those middle rounds. I really haven't had the opportunity to draft from these middle rounds. It's been pretty much all from one side or the other. Waiting for 2 more. And once again, this is the Pomeranian. 4 out of the top 4 of 12 in this group will move on to a group of 10. 2 of those 10 will move on to a group of 8. Finally, first place moves into a 940 seat final. Not the best payouts at the bottom end. However, 50 grand at the top, especially with 4 people moving on at the end of this first round. Definitely nothing to sneeze at. I think that's a pretty good payout. Find ourselves in the 3 position. Jamar Chase would be absolutely incredible. Please don't make me take one of these running backs. Please don't make me take one of these running backs. I'm tired of choosing Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan. Give me something else. I haven't really had... I could take Jamar Chase at first. I could have done it last go around, but no, I would love the opportunity to have Jamar Chase here. Let me grab Chase. Let me see, maybe we can grab like an AJ Brown. I know a lot of people have been going with like Rashee Rice. Or you look at a guy like, Derrick Henry, Chase Brown in this range. Maybe go Jeremiah Love again. Grab a running back, get your hero wide receiver, go all in on your running backs following. As Bijan goes, I think Bijan goes number 1. I think that the easy choice is to choose Jahmyr Gibbs. But if it was the other way around, we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose Jamar Chase. Love it. I think if it was the other way around, I think there's a discussion to be had. I think that the offense that you're in with Cincinnati, you're expecting this to be a very high-powered offense. You're expecting Jamar Chase to grab 160 targets this season. And you kind of expect that when the Bengals are healthy, that they're going to be great, at least offensively. I can't say the same about the Falcons. They're kind of, hit or miss. For as good as Bijan was last year, I think they were still very hit or miss. I think there were definitely more opportunities that Bijan could have been, could have scored more points, definitely could have won me a few more weeks. But, it is what it is. I just don't really want to go down that route again. I have a ton of Bijan. I drafted a ton of him early on in this year. I'm okay with just skipping out on a lot of Bijan for the rest of the year. For as good as he is, I have him in probably 25% of my leagues. It's been a little too many for me, for my taste. So now we're looking. We might be put in a very tough position here. Joe Burrow going average 63. Can probably grab him at reach for him at like 51. Hampton goes. Barkley goes. This is probably going to be the range where everybody just starts ripping off running backs back to back. I might have to lean going toward another wide receiver. Oh, we got Mac 10 Jones grabbing Christian McCaffrey. Who would have thought? All right, take a look here. Christian McCaffrey with Devon A. Chan. James Cook with Derrick Henry is kind of nasty. I won't even lie. That might be one of my favorite starts. These are two guys that are going to be absolutely incredible. Might actually be one of my favorite starts that I've seen. Brock Bowers with Jonathan Taylor. Puka up next. I think... So Jeremiah Love goes. I think this is a good opportunity. I think we just maybe want to go like the 0 RB route. I could go ahead and I could grab George Pickens here. I'm a huge fan of Pickens. I think that the fact that the Cowboys were so willing to invest their franchise tag on him and bring him back in, I think he's a big part of this offense. And I really do see him continuing on that success here. As Trey McBride, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins goes. This could be a position where I grab Chris Olave. Saints take a huge step forward, especially toward the end of the year. I think that this team is going to be even better. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play for volume. I'm expecting Chris Olave to grab 150 targets in this offense. He is the bona fide number 1 receiver. And I, start out very, very happy. I'm okay. I have a ton of Pickens. I'm grabbing him every chance that I get. I just think that I do think that CeeDee Lamb is, a very good player, but it's almost like getting exactly what CeeDee Lamb produces at a discount. And I love that. Definitely could have gone somebody like T. Higgins. Maybe I go full-on Bengals. But I'm very happy with what I've gathered here. Now, looking at this, Monroe St. Brown, Chase Brown, Rashee Rice, I think I'm a fan of this team. Josh Jacobs at 28, a little bit too early for my blood, especially with everything that's come out. I think I was watching Who earlier, and there was somebody in his draft, like Josh Jacobs fell, I think it was like 20 to 30 spots, and you were able to get him like somewhere 5th round, 6th round. If you're getting him at that price, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and take him. This team is nasty. Josh Allen, James Cook, Derrick Henry is absolutely nasty. Devontae Smith falls to 35. That's kind of a huge shock to me. Start thinking about our next players. I think that we could... Oh, man, this is where it gets interesting. I don't have a ton of Colston Loveland. I definitely could go Colston Loveland. I would love... But I do need a running back. And I need to grab Joe Burrow. All right, no. I think what I want to do here is I want to grab Colston Loveland. If I have the opportunity to. I don't have a ton of shares of him. You're getting a top 3 tight-ended fantasy. Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins. So I think right here, I'm going to go Colston Loveland. Really go full on into my 0 RB build. Probably grab a pair of them when it comes back to me. and grab Joe Burrow here to go with my Jamar Chase stack. My Cincinnati Bengals stack is big sploosh. Cam Scatterbo goes off the board. Terry McLaurin goes off. Joe Burrow, if you're going by his recent memory, Joe Burrow every other year goes absolutely crazy. He was injured last year, which means this year he is bound to go absolutely crazy. End up taking the second quarterback off the board. I don't mind doing that, as we're going to have to invest pretty heavily into the running back position. These are going to be some of the guys that I'm looking at. Gonna hopefully walk away with 2 of the 5 of them. Jalen Warren and RJ Harvey are my preference personally. I think that RJ Harvey, he didn't perform as well as I think that a lot of people were hoping that he would last year, but he was given a ton of opportunities. 47 catches, only 146 attempts on the ground, still managed to go for 12 touchdowns. That is pretty solid for a rookie year. Jalen Warren, I think, is going to continue to be the guy in Pittsburgh. He's going to be the 1A. Rico Dowdle might get in a little bit, but, you gave Jalen Warren over 200 attempts last year, 40 catches. Aaron Rodgers trusts him. I think that, Rico Dowdle is going to have to build that trust up with Aaron Rodgers, whereas Jalen Warren just kind of has it already. So, Kickflesh grabs James Cook, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen. So he grabs the number 1 quarterback. Turns around, goes Zay Flowers, grabs Lamar Jackson. True Baltimore stack. He has a great matchup in Week 17 going against Cincinnati. This might be a crazy, scary team. Cortland Sutton, a very, very solid, wide receiver 2 option, I guess, if you're going to go this route. This team is actually really crazy. I don't know how I feel about going double elite quarterback, especially when you only get points for one of them, but it looks solid on paper. Ant Mang going the 4 running back, 2 wide receiver route, grabbing as many running backs as he can. Kenneth Walker, Kyron Travion, who a lot of people are viewing may be this year's Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jadarian Price. A very interesting route as it gets up to my turn. A lot of quarterbacks still here. Probably was going to be able to grab them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab Jalen Warren as my number 1 running back and going to go back-to-back with it. I say going back-to-back, but I'm seeing, the quarterback options here. I could go another elite quarterback. Caleb Williams, definitely somebody that I'd be looking at. I could double up the stack and end up just going with Dak, so you get the Dak, George Pickens, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and worry about grabbing a running back later. But I don't know. I think that the talent after this range really falls off. I don't think that I can really bank on grabbing like a J.K. Dobbins. And Chris Rodriguez, I guess Kenneth Gainwell is still down here. Yeah, it's a tough choice. I think what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab Dak. I think that the double stack is just too sweet to pass up right now. Jalen Warren, truly a 0 RB build that we're going for here. Going to have opportunity. Blake Corum is definitely an option. Definitely somebody might end up stealing more of a role from Kyron this year than a lot of people expect. Kyron had a very solid year last year as well. But I think this is potentially going to be a year, especially with how good the Rams offense is, that Blake Corum, you might see a little more opportunity for Blake to shine a little bit. So it might be somebody that we're looking at here. As we look, my team thus far: Jamar Chase, George Pickens, Chris Olave, Colston Loveland, Joe Burrow, Jalen Warren as our 0 running back start, and Dak Prescott. Wanted to try something a little bit different. Normally by now I would have probably grabbed a couple of running backs. I don't really care a lot of the time for the 0 RB build, but I did really want to try something new with having Jamar Chase, with having George Pickens. And personally, I didn't really care for a lot of the running backs that were going around this range here. I don't have any of them that I would have preferred. We missed out on like Derrick Henry, Chase Brown. And, I think you have to take advantage of those wide receiver picks when you have the capability of doing so. All right. 7 picks away. We're looking at some of these teams. Doesn't have a quarterback yet. Does all LW IRIP, Justin Jefferson, Barkley, Devontae Smith, Javonte Williams, Jordan Tyson, Christian Watson, Addison, RJ Harvey. Meanwhile, you got Kick and Flush, who's already grabbed his 2 elite quarterbacks. Kind of slacking on the wide receivers. Probably could have used going like an Addison there rather than Tony Pollard. But does have the Lamar with the Zay Flowers stack. Ant-Mang going 4 running back, 3 wide receiver, and then the quarterback build. Wide receivers being CeeDee Lamb. Adunzi, I think, is set for a great year. Parker Washington, still not a huge fan of, but I think Mahomes is going to take another step back into the player that we all think and know that he is. I think what I want to do is I want to grab Blake Corum. I think my next pick is really going to depend on who falls back to me. I wouldn't mind having a Quentin Johnston. I wouldn't mind having a Josh Downs. I wouldn't mind having a Michael Pittman Jr. And then grabbing maybe like a Jonathan Brooks, Aaron Jones on the way when it comes back to me. I think that would be a pretty solid option, especially seeing the progress that Daniel Jones has made. I think that Josh Downs could be set up to have a big role. Michael Pittman Jr. definitely somebody that I was looking at, but I have quite a few shares of him already, so let's go with Josh Downs. I think that's pretty good. Taking again a look back, Christian McCaffrey, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers already, going triple running back to start, then grabbing Tet, DJ Moore, Carnell Tate, DK Metcalf, and then Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, I think, a very, very underrated player in this range. If he was there rather than Blake Corum, I think that's the route that I would have gone. Wet Sheets, huge fan of St. Brown, huge fan of Chase Brown. Luther Burden, again, set up for a huge role this upcoming year. I think Quinshon Judkins is pretty solid. Not sure what we're going to get out of Bashal Tootin, but he does get the stack with Trevor Lawrence, Jacoby Myers, and Ricky Pearsall going at the 103 is not too shabby. Definitely somebody that could demand a lot of targets in the San Francisco offense. Hey, Fantasy Dog, what is up? Yes, it is a Pomeranian. How are you doing tonight? We're just looking over some of the teams. I found myself in the 3 position, decided to go a little bit of a 0 RB build. Grab Jamar Chase at the 3, stack him with Burrow, grab Pickens and Olave, stack Pickens with Dak. Took Jalen Warren as my first running back. grabbing Colston Loveland. Try to, something a little bit different this time around. I haven't gotten a ton of shares of Colston Loveland, haven't gotten a ton of shares of Chris Olave or Josh Downs, so I thought that this was a pretty good time to, get a few shares here and there with my Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase stack. So now we're 6 picks away, and again, I'm looking at like a Jonathan Brooks. I don't think I've drafted Jonathan Brooks yet. Oh yeah, I'm down to do one more. I probably was thinking about ending it, but you came in, you said you're down to do another, so I'm open to doing another there, dude. Jonathan Brooks goes before me, of course. So now we're probably looking at either Jordan Mason or Rashad White. Aaron Jones will probably find himself still being the lead back in Minnesota for some reason, but I do think that with how injury prone he is, I do think that he is probably going to find himself on the shelf sooner rather than later. And Jordan Mason could end up having a big year. Rashad White in Washington as well. Nobody really has a handle on this backfield. I think Rashad White, with his experience leading a backfield in Tampa Bay, this is somebody that can definitely be an impact player for Washington. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab Jordan Mason here as our third running back option and see what else falls for me here. Definitely, Kelsey is one of my favorite guys. I've said it before. I said it during the last draft. I love doing drafts. I have a problem. I'm an addict to doing drafts, so I have no problem whatsoever. I live in California, so it's only 10 o'clock. Don't really have anywhere else to be. So I am more than happy to stay up and do another one with you. I would probably take a rip after we are done with this draft right before I queue up my next one. And that should be quite fun as well. Romeo Doubs and Casey Concepcion, two guys that I'm looking for here. Kelsey was probably going to be the pick if he fell to me. Definitely could go another tight end. Mark Andrews seems very interesting, but I do think of all of these options, Romeo Doubs, I'm expecting to lose a bunch of targets to A.J. Brown once he comes over. Plus, you got Hunter Henry there. Casey Concepcion, I think, is in a very open offense. He is somebody that finds very, very soft spots in zone coverage, and I do think that he has a good shot of being the lead wide receiver in this offense. So we are going to grab him here. What do I think about Shedeur? Honestly, so I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out of college. I think he had a huge ego and he had a lot to prove. He had a chip on his shoulder. It seemed like everybody that was reporting on him just wasn't too big of a fan of him. Just because the personality, it wasn't fit to be like an NFL quarterback. But he was very humble last year, especially going into training camp, being behind Dylan Gabriel, being behind Deshaun Watson. He had his moments last year. I think Cleveland fans really want him to be the quarterback of the future. But he had a turnover problem last year. I think that if he can fix the turnover problem, I think he could be absolutely electric. I think that Cleveland fans would be ecstatic to have somebody like Shedeur in there. I think they've already been behind him based off of what I saw last year. I think that they were, very much behind him. But I would like to take him, see him take a step forward. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to stay in the offense for very long. once he comes back and they make him undoubtedly starting quarterback. I don't think it's going to last very long. I don't think that the Browns are going to be a very good team. So why not continue to give opportunities? Hopefully they don't choose Dylan Gabriel over Shador. I didn't really see a ton of talent in Dylan Gabriel, and I was a huge fan of Dylan at Oregon. But he doesn't really have the build of an NFL quarterback, unfortunately. And I think that they probably need to run with Shador. Once they move past, about the hungry dogs, right? No, I don't know about the hungry dogs. What are the hungry dogs? I've actually never heard of that. Isaiah Likely going up next. We're up in 2 picks. Dallas Goedert might be the play here. Dallas Goedert might be the play here on a 1-year deal. Pretty much the security blanket for Jalen Hurts and this entire Philadelphia offense. Wow, Chiggy Okonkwo. Guess, he had Jaden Daniels. But Dallas Goedert being here, very happy to go ahead and grab him as my second tight end off the board. I think what I may want to do here, next pick at 166, I don't really like a ton of options in that range at running back. I think what I may want to do here is probably either grab my 4th running back or I grab my 3rd quarterback. And the fact that I grabbed Downs makes me want to go Daniel Jones. Hope that, my running backs, everything works out for them and just full-blown skip the position. Hungry Dogs are practice players who stay after practice with Shador. Really? Dylan looks scared like he's going to get hurt. Well, he's like 5'8", right? So he can't even see over the pocket, let alone, be comfortable enough in it with huge guys coming at you. Guys the size of Will Anderson coming at you. Myles Garrett, I wouldn't want them coming after me either. These are huge guys. And, small hands for a quarterback, he just doesn't really have the making. Shouted 2 of them out after a game last year. They weren't dressed. Taxi squad. Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff that I like. That's the kind of stuff that you didn't really see a lot of when he was at Colorado. And I know that I just read a report earlier that he and Travis Hunter were paying for a lot of the NIL deals at Colorado for a lot of the other guys, so they could get paid, go on scholarships, things like that. So I love stories like that. I just didn't really see that a lot at Colorado because every time you saw the watch thing, and it got to be a little too much. It seemed like he wasn't, the most humble person. It seemed like he was, a Nepo baby to an extent. Daddy was kind of coddling him a little bit. And, that can be a little much. But I love hearing stories like that. I think that, stories like that are great. Yeah, Colorado was a circus. I remember when they played, I think it was Colorado State, and the quarterback just straight up called him out. And Colorado ended up coming back and winning in overtime. And all they did was talk trash. It was just literally media frenzy when Colorado was playing football at that time was absolutely insane. And I say that I'm a Fresno State fan. So, Colorado compared to us wasn't too far away. We were getting tons of information about Colorado in our area, in the Central Valley, in Southern California, all over the news outlets, everything. It was, especially I think they played USC down here in Southern California, one of those seasons. Oh my God, it was crazy. Media outlets couldn't get enough of them. As you see here, Brandon Ayuk going at the end to Jake Hurts. probably going to end up in Washington. Very ironic that he also ends up with Antonio Williams, the rookie, going to Washington. Jerry Jeudy, once again, very sad to see him. Actually crazy that he fell down to 181 in the last draft that we did. Very, very crazy to see that he fell that far. Trey Tucker goes here. Coming up in a few picks, this is, wow, Jonah Coleman actually still here. 20 pick discount for Jonah Coleman. RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins lead this backfield, but I do think there is a reasonable chance Jonah Coleman could find work sooner rather than later. However, Zach Charbonnet, once he comes back, this is somebody that's going to want to immediately take over, go back to 1A, 1B with Jadarian Price. I don't, especially because of the fact that he can take care of the ball, doesn't have a fumbling problem. He's going to be a big part of this offense once again when he comes back. Debo is one of my favorite guys to draft here, but this might have to be one where I reach. I'm going to go wide receiver. I'm going to go with a guy that I believe could make a big impact for Tampa Bay. We're looking for some boom opportunities here. Ted Hurst is going to fill in as the X receiver in Mike Evans' absence for Tampa Bay, somebody that you can just throw the ball up to in the red zone, and he is going to go up and get it. I think this is the perfect landing spot for him to have an immediate impact for this offense. Carr Adams. So I actually have a Devontae Adams. I'm still waiting to get shelves up. We just moved into this apartment, my wife and I. So we have shelves that are probably going to be going up sometime this weekend in the background. And I've assigned Fresno State Devontae Adams helmet that I just want to put on display so bad. It is my favorite piece of memorabilia that I have. I'm a huge Fresno State fan. Derek Carr, David Carr, what's his name from Dallas, the defensive back. It's slipping my mind right now who it is. The corner, he just had a big year. I'm spacing on his name really, really hard right now. Ronnie Rivers, Jake Hayner had his little spell in the NFL for the Saints. I love all my Fresno State guys. But that helmet, that signed Fresno State helmet, I had to get it. Not many of our guys make it to the NFL as it is, let alone a guy that is talented as Devontae Adams is. So, I had to commemorate it. Seven picks away. We've got 3 picks left. Jeremy Bernard. Marshawn Lloyd goes at pick 181. Chris Brooks is probably also a pretty solid option. Tank Bigsby. Brian Thomas Jr. Trey Harris goes. Keon Coleman, somebody who's probably going to continue to disappoint because you can't just stop being a head case for Buffalo. Ego is all crazy. Chris Bell, somebody that I was hoping would get back to me. I think he could have a huge year this year. He's my favorite rookie to draft. And especially when you could get him at 186 when he could possibly go in as the number 1 receiver in Miami. Absolutely incredible. Sean Tucker, also somebody that I think is a solid option around this range. Probably going to take over for Bucky sooner rather than later. So now we find ourselves at pick 190. I think what I want to do here is I want to grab my last running back. I want to grab Emmett Johnson. And I think now I want to start swinging for some fences when it comes to some wide receivers. Tank Dell, somebody that I'm definitely interested in if he is coming back, but can you bank on Tank Dell coming back for who knows how long? Not really. Cooper Cup is somebody that I really, really love. And if I grab Cooper Cup here, I could probably go after a super boom wide receiver on the tail end. I don't mind reaching a little bit for him here. And I just realized I stacked my tight end, so maybe I need to grab another tight end. I'm going to grab David Njoku. I didn't realize that I double stacked the tight ends. I'm not paying attention. That's on me. Yeah. You heard Coach Reed's comp for Johnson, LaShawn McCoy? Yeah. So, I mean, if you have Andy Reid who coached LaShawn McCoy and is giving him that type of comparison, and he coached him both early on in his career and later in the later stages of his career, he saw the full transformation. I think that's a pretty great comparison. Emmett Johnson, Kenneth Walker, again, has been dealing with his own fair share of injuries. The running back room in Kansas City has not exactly been the most talented in the last couple of years. They may lean going Emmett Johnson sooner rather than later. He might find himself very much involved in the third down passing game, especially with the comparison like Shady McCoy. Come on. I would not be surprised. I like Cup AP too. Yeah, Cooper Cup, actually, very, very good. I don't see him really getting taken over by, Torrey Horton. I don't, Torrey Horton had some big weeks last year, but I think that was before Cooper Cup was able to really find his footing in this offense. He is a veteran receiver. He literally just paced receivers in the Super Bowl, 3 months ago. This is still somebody that's going to be heavily involved in this offense. Other options I was looking at, Skylar Bell is definitely somebody that I love choosing in this last round. I think that he could be somebody like Gabe Davis, who has, those big plays from Josh Allen down the field, especially with Keon Coleman obviously not working out, and DJ Moore is getting on the older side, and Kenneth Walker can't pass protect, I guess. Yeah, he not exactly his known forte. Prior to last year, honestly, I wasn't the hugest fan of Kenneth Walker. He was on my do not draft list. I'll just be very, very honest. I wasn't a huge fan of him. Grew on me a little bit in his playoff performances. Obviously destroyed my 49ers, so I have to give credit where it is due. Malik Washington is also another option that I have here. Again, the Dolphins added 3 wide receivers in the draft, but Malik knows the offense, I guess it doesn't really matter if he knows the offense because they changed everybody. So we're going to go with Skylar Bell. I, talking to myself, thought out of it. I like Horton too, but injury, no, he didn't. And he pre-drated the heck out of him. Yeah, I like Malik Willis too. I think that he had a lot of opportunity to improve with Green Bay. He was kind of thrown into the deep end with Tennessee, and that wasn't exactly... I mean, we saw what happened with Will Levis as well. It just wasn't a very good match for any quarterback that was coming into Tennessee at the time. And, having his opportunity to learn in Green Bay behind Jordan Love, I think was great for him. I think it was a great opportunity for him. And clearly, Miami's new head coach saw something in him in Green Bay and said, that's my guy. I really, I want to go after him. And they did just that. Miami is retooling everything. I think that this could be a very solid year to see what Malik Willis has to offer pre-drafted. Oh, you didn't know he was hurt, and you pre-drafted the heck out of him. It's all about your running back room. Strong everywhere else. Yeah. Once I grabbed Chase and we got back to the running backs, I wasn't too keen on grabbing any of the running backs in that range. You know, Josh Jacobs went 2 picks after me. So I wasn't too keen on grabbing any of the running backs. Probably could have grabbed one instead of grabbing Colston Loveland, but I wanted to get my fair share of Colston Loveland in. So I'm ready to go whenever you are, my friend. Probably count down from 10 and just enter it. So I'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gonna go ahead and we are going to enter. We got 3 people. We are close in this draft. I never swipe one person. I'll tell you what I am looking at when I'm ready. So we have now, 7 people waiting on 5 more, 4 more. Hopefully you were able to get in to this draft. Would be very nice to have somebody in my chat to we're in. Oh, let's go. Let me step off camera for an adult all right, we are Peanut Punch. What is up, my friend? How are you doing tonight? We are just getting into our last draft of the night. Appreciate you for stopping by. Appreciate you for being here. For my first live stream, don't really know what Jamar Chase at the 3. Fantasy Dog at the 1. You grabbed the 1. Definitely see you there. Might have to snipe you, have some opportunities to snipe you myself, my friend. But welcome, Peanut Punch. Welcome. Decided to hop on tonight. I've always wanted to do this. I see that the fantasy community is growing. I've spent so much time, making long-form videos, doing research and stuff like that. I thought that it would just be nice to sit down, vibe a little bit. My wife is sleeping, so, just have a good late night draft, couple of them. I see Peanut Punch. I see you in here at the 5, P Punch. So it looks like it's going to be a fun draft. Fantasy Dog getting Bijan at the 1. I think that's a pretty good pick for you there, buddy. Also got Mets 11, T-Bone 7711, Wavy Crockett 80, The Mate, Romo Cop Truther, John Doe, Bonesy 16, Ardeal Fast Life Kurt. So we've got 3 of us in here. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes at the 2. Wow. That's crazy. I'm a little shocked by that. I feel like I gotta go Gibbs now. I don't think I can pass up Gibbs at 3. I was fully ready to go Jamar Chase. But I think that grabbing Gibbs at the 3, I don't know if wow. Amon-Ra St. Brown going at the 2. I like Bijan over Gibbs playoff schedule. Yeah. I think that he's got a pretty good playoff schedule over Gibbs. I think that the Falcons, definitely have a lot easier schedule all around than the Detroit does, playing in the NFC North and the Falcons playing in the NFC South. But I still can't go over the Amon-Ra St. Brown thing. Like, I know I'm a little faded, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is absolutely. I've never seen anybody. This is my first time this year that I've seen somebody go that much for their guy. I'm genuinely shocked. Yeah, good draft to be 1-5. Yeah, Puka at the 1-5 is absolutely insane. I think that I having Gibbs at the 3, Jamar Chase at the 4. I think that these are all very sick picks. Amari and Hampton plus week 17. Gibbs on grass. That's a good point. Week 17. Gibbs. I forgot who the matchup is. I just took a look at it. All right, I was studying it earlier, and now I've smoked a little bit, so I have no idea. The matchups are escaping me at the moment. Hampton and Barkley. I think that Hampton is going to have a big year this year with the Mike McDaniel offense. I think that the Chargers went out of their way to try and improve this offensive line too. I think that this is going to be a good year for the Chargers. I think that Hampton could have his breakout year this year. Chase Brown going to Jonathan Taylor. Jason matching up with Drake London. Puka going with Brock Bowers. Never going to get an opportunity to get Brock Bowers to come back to me, man. Never going to have that opportunity. I went with George Pickens last time, so I think what I want to do is I want to go Nico Collins this time. Switch it up a little bit. I think that, again, this is going to be a defense where they're just going to be off the field. They're going to get opponents off the field, get their offense on the field. I think Nico's going to have a ton of opportunities. Looking at Allen, Etienne at the turn. I think that's great. I think that's great picks for you, especially going with Bijan. You get the number 1 quarterback. You grab another solid running back in Travis Etienne. I think those are 2 very, very good picks. Once again, looking at mine on the way back, Trey McBride is staring me in the face. I don't want to do it though. He's staring me in the face. I think what I really want to do, I could go another wide receiver, could grab like an A.J. Brown. But I think what I want to do is I want to grab another running back. I wanted to have 2 in the first 3 rounds in this draft. I think that's what I was thinking coming into it, but I wanted to make sure I got the wide receiver that I wanted. And frankly, I was okay with grabbing either Kyron or Breece Hall here. So, take care of my running backs early, go full in on these wide receivers. Almost took Breece Hall or almost took Nico. Fantasy dog. Trey McBride goes to the mate. Peanut Punch grabs A.J. Brown to go with his Puka Nacua and Brock Bowers. I actually really love this start for you, Peanut Punch. Puka and Bowers. Who was I watching? It was somebody in your guys' community because I watch Blunt. I've seen Bayou Bengal. I watch who, and somebody in the group was talking about Puka and Brock Bowers together, getting them, on getting Bowers on the turn after you grab Puka, and it's just so nice. Nobody has given me that opportunity in the drafts that I've been able to grab Puka to get Brock Bowers. It looks like it's just such a nice start. Won't say who I'm taking next. We all close together. Yeah, it kind of is unfortunate that we ended up getting 1, 3, and then 5. So we're all pretty close together. T. Higgins and Zay Flowers. That is a great Week 17 matchup. Fully expecting, if he has the opportunity, I don't know if Lamar is going to get back to him, but grabbing maybe like a Lamar Joe Burrow on the way back, probably Not going to happen with T-Bone here, but Lamar might be in the cards. Lad McConkey goes. Mike Evans. Lad McConkey, I'm still nervous that Keenan Allen's going to come back and sign, or they're going to trade for somebody like Brian Thomas Jr. And then Lad McConkey's value is just going to go right back to where it was last year. And we're going to be sitting here wondering why we drafted him. Luther Burden, not somebody that I've had a ton of opportunity to draft. I'm actually really excited about that. I was very excited to see Luther Burden was still there. I think this, with Chicago taking this step forward offensively last year, this is going to be a great year for him. I'm actually very excited about that pick. That I did not expect to get a Luther Burden there. Usually he's gone by this point. As fantasy dog goes Terry McLaurin. I see Peanut Punch grabs Travion Henderson. Definitely looking out for him in New England this year. Might have a breakout season. Seen a lot of comparisons to Jahmyr Gibbs during this offseason. Fantasy Dog follows it up by grabbing DeAndre Swift, one of my favorite late-round running back options. And DeMont goes as well. So now I have my pick of the litter of wide receivers. Jameson Williams, definitely going to be somebody that I think could demand a lot of targets, or you could go with Devontae. I'm going to play Homer. I'm going to go Devontae. This is my Fresno State guy. I love Devontae Adams. I think that this Rams offense is going to be one of the most, if not the most elite offense in the entire league. Going to have a ton of opportunities to score, so only makes sense to grab him here. As I'm actually now looking, if the mate doesn't grab... Well, so T-Bone skips over grabbing Joe Burrow. Fast Life Kurt misses out on Lamar Jackson, but might have an opportunity here to grab Joe Burrow to stack him with T. Higgins. And once again, guys, thank you so much for dropping by and hanging out and doing some drafts with me. I'm not used to streaming. I'm a lot more well put together and talkative when it comes to actually using statistics and not just rambling on like an idiot. But I thought about Adams week 17, but after I said I don't snipe... Well, thankfully you didn't. I wouldn't have been mad either way. I was definitely deciding between three guys there, and I had an opportunity to draft any one of them. So, not mad at it. Joe Burrow's still not off the board. It doesn't seem like anybody's really going after quarterbacks right now. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that is the route that everybody is going. Bashal Tootin goes... Jane Daniels finally goes. And it looks like we're going to have ample opportunities here to grab quarterbacks coming up. Jane Daniels goes over Joe Burrow. I'm a little confused by that one. But like I was saying, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm usually much more well-composed with actual statistics and everything. But, you know, I wanted to do... the Fresno State Bulldogs. Fresno State Bulldogs. I wanted to do something a little bit, different. Take the edge off, off work and everything. So I appreciate you guys for being here, hanging out with me, doing some drafts. And especially talking to me. It's very hard trying to talk to yourself for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm not the best at it. So I appreciate you guys for being here. Carnell Tate, Parker Washington goes. The mate I keep thinking it's the mate. T-Bone, again, with an opportunity to grab Joe Burrow. And finally takes that opportunity. I myself, I have the opportunity to go ahead and grab Caleb Williams, so I'm going to stack him up with Luther Burden here as my QB1. Jalen Hurts, if I would have grabbed like a Devontae Smith instead of going Brees Hall, then, maybe I would have gone Hurts. Definitely was in the cards for me. Fantasy Dog is up here. Probably needs to go after some receivers. Mekhi Lemon, Michael Wilson, definitely a solid option. But it looks like you have your 3 running backs figured out. You got Josh Allen, of course, here. And grabbing Alec Pierce here, somebody with Daniel Jones coming back who should step back into being a very solid piece for the Colts. Just getting his extension, obviously, Michael Pittman was moved, which opens up opportunities for him. And speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, I haven't had a ton of opportunity to grab Tyler Warren here either, so we're going to go ahead and grab him. ADP for Tyler Warren going 66.6 average, grabbing him at 75. Pretty much a 10-pick discount. I will absolutely take that. And Peanut Punch grabs Jalen Hurts. You have a very, very sick team, Peanut Punch. I'm a very, very big fan of your team. A.J. Brown, obviously, probably going to New England. Travion Henderson, looking for a breakout season. Jameson Williams probably was my second choice. Could have gone either way, but I have so much Jameson Williams. I wanted to go with Devontae. Brian Thomas Jr., still think he's the number 1 wide receiver as far as talent is concerned in that Jacksonville offense. And Jalen Hurts has been a fantasy viable beast quarterback, elite quarterback for the last couple of years. So I'm a huge, huge fan of your team there, Peanut Punch. Fantasy Dog wanted to grab Metcalf and Pierce. Where did you get Michael Wilson from, brother? I didn't even see him on... he has, a much lower ADP, 88. So you must have been scrolling for a minute and just had him in the wrong position. Peanut Punch is a player for sure. I know I've seen Peanut Punch in these chats, watching these live streams somewhere. I know absolutely. So I know he's a baller. I know I see him in the chat. Like, that name to me sounds so familiar. So I know he's a baller. And, I love love being in a community that plays fantasy football like I do. It's such a strong hobby of mine. And I just love doing it. I love talking about it. I love playing it. It doesn't get any better than this. So I love, him being here and being good. Because you don't always get great fantasy players, especially when you're playing with, your friends, Taking a look once again. I think that Peanut Punch probably has the best team. I'm a really, really big fan of his team. Ricky Pearsall there. Love Ricky Pearsall. I think he's going to have a big role in this offense, especially with Mike Evans now being there. Might alleviate his need to just do anything. Chris Godwin. I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston here. Go after another receiver. Somebody that definitely took another step forward in my eyes for the Chargers. I think, again, this offense is going to be a lot better. And with him being the deep threat, I don't see somebody like Keenan Allen coming back, taking into Quentin Johnston's role as much as Ladd's. which I think, again, is a real possibility. So I'm comfortable taking Quentin Johnston here. Now, what I'm going to follow up with is I'm going to go ahead and grab Matthew Stafford, stack him again with Devontae. So now we've got our two stacks as we look forward to what everybody else has done. Sam Laporta and Kyle Pitts, double tight end, not too shabby there, fantasy dog. I'm really big again on Kyle Pitts. I know everybody says that it's Kyle Pitts' year. I truly believe I am. If anybody is a Kyle Pitts fan, I am the one Kyle Pitts fan. If this dude is dying of water, I will bring him water. It is his year. Don't look at me like that, because I know everybody thinks the same thing. Kyle Pitt, this is his year. Sam Laporta, bounce back year. Absolutely believe it. J.K. Dobbins was the other player that I was probably looking at. Definitely going to need to look at another running back option here shortly. But again, another solid pick by Peanut Punch. Looking at some of these other guys, I was a big fan, honestly. I was a big fan of Fast Life, going Hampton, Barkley, Higgins, Flowers, until he got here. I would have loved to see Joe Burrow go at one of these spots. You grab him, you stack him with T. Higgins. Other than that, I still think he's done fairly well. T-Law and Jared Goff are pretty solid. Rico Dowdle is one of my favorite late-round running backs to grab. I think that he could have a big role in Pittsburgh. Justin Jefferson, Gianti, Jacobs, again, I think that he needed to drop down. He needs to be down even further. You're grabbing him maybe in the 4th round, somewhere if you can get him somewhere around here, perfectly fine. But I'm with everything that's been going on, I can only imagine how it's going to affect his season. So I've been avoiding Josh Jacobs at all costs. He's just a kid still, Pitts. Yeah, he's like, 23? So he's still fairly young. And I appreciate that, Peanut Punch. Thank you for being here. Michael Pittman Jr. going at 111. Actually really solid. Jonathan Brooks, I knew Peanut Punch. No, I've been in these streams. I've been watching them. I knew who he was going to be going after. So we're just going to go ahead and grab Wan'Dale Robinson. If he was there, the pick would have been made. It would have been made. It would have been Jonathan Brooks. He's looked so solid coming out of training camp. Chuba Hubbard will only be the lead of this backfield for so much longer. And it won't be that much longer. So now grabbed Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm, again, been a huge fan of Wan'Dale for years. Think he will help Cam Ward take a huge step forward. And now we're looking to grab our next running back. Aaron Jones goes. Wasn't really looking at Aaron Jones, thankfully. Jordan Mason goes, so he grabs both people in the backfield. That leaves me to grab either Rashad White or Tyrone Tracy. I think the odds are Cam Scatabo. I don't know what's... He runs like he's going to break his leg, like every play. He's a walking ball of CTE. And I'm worried that he is not going to last through the season. So Tyrone Tracy, grabbing him, I'm very comfortable grabbing Tyrone Tracy and putting him as my third RB. I would have taken Willis there. Would have taken Malik Willis at here at Fantasy Dog Spy. He grabs Malik Willis and grabs Khalil Shakir. I think that Malik Willis going as your second quarterback option, Definitely a running quarterback. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, fantasy dog. Khalil Shakir. There have been some reports that have come out for Khalil Shakir that he did have surgery in this offseason. I'm pretty sure, right? So there are some concerns there with his recovery. Is he going to be okay? Obviously, have him. You want to pair him with Josh Allen. But those reports are making me want to draft Shakir less and less. And just as weird as it sounds, just kind of completely avoid the Buffalo offense. I don't really have too many shares of Kincaid. I don't really have too many shares of DJ Moore after the draft. After the draft when all of the rest of the league started. Pre-draft, I have quite a bit of DJ Moore, but not really since. There's just a lot of question marks there in this offense. Stephon Diggs is somebody that I would like to have had come back to me. I think that's pretty solid value. Don't know who he's going to find himself with yet, but he's so talented. He's just going to make an immediate impact. 1,000 yards, 4 of the last 5 seasons. He doesn't really feel like he's missed a step. Yes, I forgot again. Yikes. Ooh. Forgot about what their fantasy dog. Dallas Goedert goes on a 1-year deal, but that's a very solid play. Whoever has Jalen Hurts would have probably, Peanut Punch, I'm sure would have loved to be grabbing Dallas Goedert in this range. Jonah Coleman. What do you think about Jonah Coleman, Peanut Punch? Because I've seen a lot of people compare him to being, he could be an every down back. That's the reports that I'm seeing. But I don't really. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab CJ Stroud to, once again, I'm going to get the triple stack. Nico, CJ to go with Caleb, and Matthew Stafford. Jonah Coleman, I've heard, can be the 3 down back. I don't know too much about him. Just the reports that I've read that, there's a lot of talk that he could step in and take over one of the spots over J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins has a history of injuries, and R.J. Harvey didn't exactly perform the best last year. So what do you think the real chances are that he finds himself leading this backfield by the end of the year? You forgot that Shakir is hurt. I see what you mean. Yeah, I tend to forget as well. Probably want to go toward a tight end here. I think Hunter Henry is probably the safest option. Looking at this team, I've managed to avoid buys pretty well. Hunter Henry and Tyler Warren, pretty good holding down my tight end spots. I don't really ever see myself going over 2 tight ends most of the time. I know that you can. Maybe I could consider it going after like a Dalton Schultz, but I don't really think about going more than 2 tight ends too often. I think there's so many other viable, big time receivers that you can get in this range. Guys like Brandon Ayuk that are still here that can make a pretty big impact. Ted Hurst, obviously. Jerry Jeudy is, reported in the depth chart as being the number 1 receiver. There's a real chance that he still could be. Trey Tucker, somebody's got to catch the ball in that offense. Jalen Naylor, same thing. There's a lot of great options here at wide receiver, so I don't really see myself grabbing tight ends or more than 2, and usually they're done by this range. Let's take a look at what we did. Rashid Shaheed and Omar Cooper Jr. exactly what I'm talking about here. Rashid Shaheed, with the bonus from getting kickoff returns, punt returns, there are some weeks where he could go off for 20 points, 25 points. There is a real chance of that. This is when you start taking those boom guys. Omar Cooper Jr., definitely somebody that the Jets are very excited about to go opposite from Garrett Wilson. And that number 2 spot in the Jets offense is wide open. It could be Kenyon Sadiq, or more likely it could be Omar Cooper Jr. Peanut Punch going Jonah Coleman, and then going Fernando Mendoza as his second quarterback option. I'm really excited to see what Fernando Mendoza does. I think that he showed a lot of grit at Indiana, showed, the new era of college football, and I loved seeing that, seeing, a team like Indiana win the national championship, and now seeing Mendoza, the type of personality, the type of character that he has on the biggest stage, leading the Raiders. I think that's a good, heartfelt story. I am interested to see if the Raiders are going to put him out sooner rather than later, like Kirk O'Chain's run with the offense a little bit, and let him develop for the first couple of weeks once you realize that Kirk Cousins doesn't really have it, and Mendoza has some good time, a couple of weeks to prepare. I think that Mendoza could see the field probably within the first couple of weeks, whether or not he's the immediate starter. I'm just really excited to see what he does. As right here, we are going to go ahead and draft Brandon Ayuk. I'm very confident in the fact that Brandon Ayuk is going to be released by the 49ers. He is going to end up going to Washington. The same way that I'm confident that A.J. Brown's going to New England is how I feel about Ayuk getting released and going to Washington. And I do think that he can be very good for Jane Daniels, somebody that, he played with in college. This could very much be a great opportunity for Brandon Ayuk to show that he is still a baller. So Fantasy Dog goes Daniel Jones and Deebo Samuel. Grabbing his third quarterback, Daniel Jones, again, looked very, very solid today in his recovery from his torn ACL. Already back to throwing as we are on the clock here. Zach Charbonnet is somebody that I'm definitely looking at, but I think this is a great opportunity to go ahead and choose Emmett Johnson once again, bolster out our running back room. Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to hold down the first, 2 spots. And we're going to see what happens with Emmett Johnson. Perhaps he takes over sooner rather than later. We just talked about the Shady McCoy comparisons as of late. Who could believe that coach? He's the best coach ever. Kirk Cagnetti, actually, I just don't believe in Harvey. Dobbins can't stay healthy. Want a number 1 running back on that team. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that there is a lot of question marks for Denver in that running back room. So I don't blame you for wanting to go Jonah Coleman. I'm just not sure how soon they're going to be prepared. I'm afraid that it's going to end up being like a Caleb Johnson situation last year. Feels like a nice high variance running back dart. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it's a great dart throw for your running back room. And he does have all the makings of being a 3-down back from the looks of it. He has the profile for it. So I'm excited to see what Denver does with that. Kirk Cagnetti, actually. So my wife actually has a friend who her friend is in a friends group with somebody who's like related to Kirk Cagnetti. And I thought that was very interesting because every time we see him, he's all dressed up in like Indiana gear, and he's like such a huge fan of, his uncle. I think it's his uncle's team, but I always thought that was so cool. Like just being able to see your family like shine on that scale, and then they won the championship, so it was like, wow, Buckeyes fan here, can't believe they beat us, dude. It's rough. It's Buckeyes haven't been They just won the national championship 2 years ago. Who would have thought that, next year they'd be going and losing to Indiana? That you can never predict that. That is college football at its finest. That's exactly what we did the college football playoff for. That's what we have it for. I absolutely love that. I think that's a great thing. I think it adds so much to the capability of college football. I actually might see Fresno State make, the national championship one day, whereas before I was never under that assumption. I never would have thought that we'd ever have a chance of making it. Looking back, once again, Peanut Punch goes Nick Singleton. I'm actually a huge fan of Nick Singleton. I remember watching him when he was at Penn. I think he was with Katron Allen. And I don't know why. I was just a big fan of the way that he runs. I think that going to Tennessee is a very solid spot for him. I don't think that there's an established number one guy there by any means. So I really love that. Sean Tucker, once again, just falls short. I always expect to potentially get him on this turn, but it never ends up working out. We went Ted Hurst the last time, so I'm going to take a dart at my favorite rookie. I'm going to go Chris Bell. So, Miami needs to have somebody in this offense to throw it to, and Chris Bell on my college drafts the last 2 years. I've had Chris Bell on both of my college season-long drafts. For the last 2 years, I've been waiting for this dude to come to the NFL. Finally here. I am super, super excited to see what he does. I figured, just knowing the fact that you were ahead of me, Peanut Punch, I knew you were going to grab Sean Tucker regardless, but a boy can dream. We had a $42 million payroll 2 years ago. Yeah, I can't even imagine that as a Fresno State fan. That doesn't even comprehend, with me. All right. Up next, I still have the opportunity to grab Ted Hurst, but I think what I want to do is I want to grab Ray Davis. In case anything happens to James Cook, I don't see Ty Johnson being the, goal line back. I don't see him being the first and second down back. And we had to fill out this running back room a little bit anyhow. But I think overall we've had a pretty solid draft. One pick left. Peanut Punch going Ted Hurst. Definitely was my other option. If I was more confident in who I find at the tail end, maybe I could have gone Kamani Vidal and leaned toward that potentially and grabbed Ted Hurst. But I do love Ted Hurst. Peanut Punch very, very, very close to grabbing him. Messed up 3 times on this draft. It happens to the best of us. I definitely have my fair share of mess ups, especially when I start smoking a little bit. Most of the time I like to stay very level headed, but this is like these little $3 drafts are like relax time for me. Like, I've done enough of them. I've done enough research to know what I want to do. And I don't really have to think a lot of the time. And it's just super, mellow, super relaxing for me. And if I mess up, I mess up. Not the end of the day. I hear you. I could have landed mine better too. I think you guys both had a really, really solid team. Khalil Shakir, obviously, forgetting about the whole injury thing, I think, that's fair. But I think you guys both had a really solid team. Again, Peanut Punch, I'm very, very much like everything from like 10 and up. I don't see any way that you could have really made it more perfect for yourself. I truly don't. Like Jonathan Brooks here, 116. J.K. Dobbins being here. Definitely could have gone a different route, but I think like having Travion and obviously you needing running backs, grabbing Dobbins and then following it up with Coleman as like a security plan, I think it's been a really solid draft for you. T. Toddler. Can never had. This is my only opportunity. My wife is pregnant, so she cannot smoke anymore. So it's almost like she lives vicariously through me. Kirk Cousins. I see Peanut Punch grabbing Kirk Cousins for his Fernando Mendoza policy, guaranteeing himself a quarterback there. So now I think I want to go with a dart throw. But I don't really know. I'm going to go with Washington. Again, somebody's got to score some points in this Miami offense. You grab Malik Washington, Chris Bell. I think I panicked. I skipped over Pat Bryant. That's probably the right play. See, even I mess up. I probably should have gone with Pat Bryant here. I think that was the right decision. But you live and you learn. Hi, Schmitty. I need some help with a trade. Do you think I should trade Stroud in the 112 for Breece Hall? I have 2 to 3 running backs, 0.5 PPR Superflex. I think you have CJ Stroud, and you're getting Breece Hall. I do a lot of Dulcich/Willis. I think Dulcich could be a very underrated tight end this year, especially with the price that he's going at very, very late. I think, Schmitty, that it really depends on if you have, 2 solid quarterbacks. You don't want to give up your depth in a super flex when it comes to your quarterbacks. So having CJ Stroud, and if you have 2 additional very solid quarterbacks that you utilize, I think that having CJ Stroud as more of a security policy is better than not having him at all, because if you don't have 2 other quarterbacks to put in for your super flex, you're just essentially giving your season away. And especially if this is a dynasty, I think that Stroud probably has more years in the NFL than Breece Hall does. I got Mahomes, Burrow, Jones, and Stroud. So I think that you have the ability then to give up. If you have Mahomes, Burrow, Daniel Jones, and CJ Stroud, you have the opportunity to give one up. It seems like Indy's very much into utilizing Daniel Jones and making him their quarterback of the future. I think that CJ Stroud is probably the worst of the 4. I'd rather have Daniel Jones over CJ Stroud. And you get more pieces with grabbing Breece Hall. And what are you really going to grab at the 112 in your rookie draft? You're going to grab somebody like Chris Bell, somebody like Eli Stowers, that may make an impact at some point. But if you're in a win now mode, then I would probably lean toward grabbing Breece Hall, because I just had the 112 in my rookie draft and I ended up with Eli Stowers, and he's not going to make an immediate impact for your team. It seems like you're kind of thinking that you're going to need to win now with the quarterbacks that you have, and looking to add more depth at the running back position. I would do it. Wow. 3 drafts, 2 hours later. Yeah, Stroud last year compared to his rookie year looked absolutely rough. Taking some potential Green Bay running back swings. I think that Brooks and having Marshawn Lloyd, especially after the trade, I went back and I looked at my shares of Lloyd and Brooks prior, as well as my shares of Josh Jacobs. I only had one team out of 50 that had Josh Jacobs. Only one team that I drafted Josh Jacobs on. And I had Marshawn Lloyd in about 25% of them. I think the Colts would re-sign Downs. I think that because of Michael Pittman Jr. being traded to Pittsburgh, or going to Pittsburgh, I think that it opens up a lot of opportunity for Josh Downs. So I think that if he has a pretty good season this year, I think there's a good chance that they re-sign him instead of looking elsewhere. I think he's a very talented receiver. I think he just has been, number 3 behind Alec Pierce, who's a big playmaker, and Michael Pittman Jr., who's pretty much been the security blanket for the Colts wide receiver core for the last couple of years. Thank you for being here, Fantasy Dog. I was in here by myself for the first hour, and then you came and you stayed with me. I think Jones has a pretty good chance of getting signed. I think they've stayed pretty invested in him long term, and I mean they're willing to. What did they franchise tag him this offseason? They're all out on Richardson. He hasn't even shown up to OTAs. Riley Leonard isn't the option. I think they're all in on going Daniel Jones. Now, if Daniel Jones comes in and has a very bad year this year, might lean a different way. But based off of what we saw last year for the first couple of weeks prior to Daniel Jones being injured, I think it's safe to say that the Colts are pretty set on keeping Daniel Jones long term. I have a gross amount of Debo. I also have a gross amount of Debo. I think that while he is getting older, he is... Yeah, Peanut Punch, thank you so much for staying here, and Schmitty, thank you for showing up. I appreciate you guys being here for my first stream. It's very nerve-wracking, but I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you very much. Debo, I'm curious to see where he goes, because he could very much go to a team like the Raiders and take a step in the right, help Fernando take a step in the right direction. They are missing so much in terms of offense other than Brock Bowers, especially at the wide receiver position. Jalen Naylor isn't exactly going to be a number one bona fide guy. And I think that there's a real chance that he could end up going somewhere like that. Now, he also could end up somewhere like New England, where if they decide maybe A.J. Brown's price tag is too much and Debo might be a little cheaper option for now, they could go ahead and do that route. They're Green Bay with Romeo Doubs leaving. There's an opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunities for Debo, but I do love grabbing him so late because of the fact that he hasn't found himself on a team yet, and I do think that he's going to play football this year. So it's almost like getting a discount at somebody that, has the ability to put up 25 points any other week, and is such a versatile piece in any offense. Like, he's going to get carries in the backfield, he's going to get screens, he's going to get slants, he's going to get a ton of these opportunities. Tell Bio and the rest of the streamers about your channel. They will welcome you as a guest. I would love to have conversations with them. I do stop by in their streams. Especially, I know that they do stream. I'm usually at work a lot of the time, but I do, stop in while I'm doing my work and say what's up. I didn't realize that there was such a large fantasy community where everybody kind of, hangs out, drafts together, goes on stream and things like that. I've been so used to just making the long form content and spending hours just sitting at a computer with my, notebook, writing down stats and things like that. So it's kind of nice to just come in, draft, and, hang out. It's been very, very fun. But I do think that I am going to go to bed. It is 11 o'clock here, 11:18, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me again. 15.5% shares Debo, 52 shares of 335 drafts. Wow, you've been... Anytime I tell anybody how many drafts that I've done, they always get so shocked. 335 is crazy. I've only done like 50 and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. What is your YouTube name so we can recognize you? I will type it in the chat. My YouTube name appears as this. Good stream, enjoyed your takes. Now you need some fancy lighting. Yeah, I use like a little ring light, like, you know, one of those ones you can buy like Best Buy. I use one of those. I have my phone as my webcam attached to my as my like droid. I use Droid Cam. I paid for it like a year. It's like $10 for a year. Use that as my webcam attached to the ring light. 25% Debo. Have to double check what I'm at. Let me see what I'm at for Debo. Got it. 3, 4. So I'm actually at like 40 drafts instead of... I think most of my Debo shares are actually in my pre-best ball. Yeah, see, I went crazy on Keenan Allen. In the very last round, I grabbed Keenan Allen everywhere because I just assumed that he's going to end up coming back to the Chargers. But Debo, 39% of the 23 that I have in the pre-draft, 39% rate for Debo. I'm hoping he doesn't retire. I'm hoping that he doesn't retire. Please, I've put so much into him. As well as Keenan Allen. Please do, just stay one more year. And Fantasy Dog, I usually go by Vetrano. That's same thing as my YouTube channel. I usually go by Vetrano. That's what all my friends call me. But I don't have any preference on name. Whatever you guys want to use, perfectly fine by me. Yes, Keenan might go to the Rams too. I wouldn't necessarily like that because, you have Devontae Adams and at that point it's like a retirement home. But he could chase a ring. You never know. We could end up getting another Bears situation like we did in 2024. It wasn't horrible. I guess his stats are pretty similar to what they were in LA last year. But I don't see him being a huge part of the offense. I think that I guess the Rams, they're also in LA. It kind of makes sense. Apart from those teams, I don't really know if we're going to see him stay in the NFL. I'm hoping that he continues. But who knows? But thank you guys again. I may be back tomorrow. I may not. It's going to depend. My wife, I believe, works tomorrow, so I might have a little bit of time before I have to do anything else. So thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate meeting you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See you guys.